Loud.
Okay.
Okay, Maureen, we're good to go.
Oh,
Okay. Hey, fantastic. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Asea 5, where we meet every Friday night at 8 o'clock, not at 5 p.m., but it's probably 5 p.m. somewhere. And we share our stories about how Redox and Asea has changed our lives, changed our practices, and give you some tips. Now, let me tell you, this is an incredible breakthrough. It's called redox signaling molecules. It affects the body in so many ways. It improves cellular communication, healing. It affects genes that have to do with your heart health, your gut health, your hormone balance, inflammation in the body, and your immune status. So it covers everything. So what we're doing with this product is we're not treating, we're not diagnosing, we're not doing anything like that. It's not a medical product. But what it does do is it allows your body to do what it does best. So your cells work better, your body is able to heal itself, and we reap the benefits of that. We're just amping up the volume. So the regular team here is comprised of Jim and Ann Glenn from San Antonio, Texas.
Hello there.
Jim is a financial expert and Ann is a nutritional expert. And then we have Dr. Lee Osler from Washington State, who is a dentist and an expert. Actually founded AOSH, which is the American Academy of Oral Systemic Health. And so he's an incredible expert on different aspects of health and also the NRF2 pathway. I'm Dr. Maureen Hayes. I'm an anesthesiologist and pain specialist, semi-retired from Galveston, Texas. And tonight we have an incredible guest. We have Dr. Carolyn Hoffman from Virginia. Dr. Hoffman is a board-certified naturopathic doctor with advanced digestive health. She's an advanced digestive health specialist in enzyme therapy, former owner and managing partner of Plexus Clinic, specializing in QEEG-based neurointegration. We'll talk a little bit about that. It's a mouthful. In addition, she does detoxification, lymphatic programs, and quantum-based scanning. That sounds awesome. She's also on the medical board with Dr. Lee Osler and myself and a number of other physicians and healthcare professionals. And let's see.
That's enough.
That's a very nice lady.
It was on, you guys. This is an impressive bio. So welcome, Dr. Carolyn. So come tell us how you got introduced, why somebody with your credentials and your background took a look at this, what you saw, how you implemented it. My understanding is that you have transitioned, like I have, full-time into being a redox educator. So tell us a little bit about that journey, how you got started and where it led to.
It's a great pleasure to be with you all as usual. You're all a great source of information anyway. You don't really need me, but anyway, happy to share my perspective on this. Those of you who know my story know that I actually turned down the opportunity to learn about Asea Redox back in 2011. I think those of you who were early adopters would say that there wasn't an awful lot of science that people could really share at that point and what we really truly know about this particular product. And I guess I have to say I was fortunate that I had crossed paths with Dorothy Dabney, and she's not a health educator at all. We'd passed through in some networking event in business, and her background is really art. But we had passed each other and known each other through a momentary time spending painting scenery for high school drama. And so we came to know each other. We hadn't seen each other for about 3 years. And she called me up and said, would you want to get together for coffee? And I will preface it with that we had been at a networking event, and I was there because I had transitioned. I had sold my partnership in Plexus Clinic, and I was rebuilding on my own. I decided it was actually more fun to be a sole practitioner than to have a partner, because that doesn't always work as smoothly as you want if you're not quite on the same path. And so I was rebuilding, and so I had started to just get out and network. And Dorothy, when she was asked what she was doing in that event, said that she was part of Asea, except I didn't really hear her. We were outside, there was a fair amount of noise, and I thought she said she was part of Asea. In my field, it's another field of quantum scanning. My brain is kind of saying, what are you doing with that? You're an art person. This is bizarre. But anyway, so when she called me, it was just social. I was like, oh yeah, of course I'll get together with you. And I have to say that I've said this many times, when she started to tell me about Asea, in my mind, my eyes were rolling in the back of my head thinking, if I'd known it was Asea, I wouldn't have been here. But at that point, you'll know by 2017, we have this amazing development that was the trigger of interest for me as the Asea gel, the topical version of this Redox technology. Say she offered me a sample. She told me all about this thing. I don't think I really paid too much attention because I was kind of saying, I don't really want to know. But I took the sample and I went home, and I guess I was fortunate. My husband ended up re-injuring an old injury from his days in gymnastics, and about 3 weeks later, I have a lot of memory here, I went, oh, I have this stuff that Dorothy gave me, and she says it helps with things that hurt. I said, you can be my guinea pig. So we went through what we all know is that traditional way of using this, rating the discomfort, and then applying it 3 times in 5 minutes, waiting 5 minutes, and hello, let's take a look at what happens. And we all know amazing things happen when we do that for things that hurt. And so, of course, we had that result. My husband's level of discomfort changed. And so I had a kind of little bit of an interest there. Dr. David Silverman came to Charlottesville to actually do a talk on it. And so this time I was actually interested in getting there and to learn. And so because it came through this direct marketing, this network marketing piece, it wasn't that I had any antithesis to network marketing. I'm familiar with it. We've built in a couple of other companies before. It still pays me residual income from something I haven't done anything with since 2003. So that's the wonderful piece about this business, is that, we do work and we get paid for a long period of time after that. So I didn't have an animus to that notion, but I didn't want that kind of a business at that point. I was busy building my new practice. So I sat at the back, kind of crossed arms, hunkered down in my seat so nobody would talk to me about the business. But I listened to the technology, and I went home that evening. I was like, okay, I want to get some of this stuff and try it. And so I bought the most amount of this that I could and the least amount of the liquid, but in those days you couldn't cater your packages the way you wanted to. And I just set about doing what David Silverman says, try it out on at least 10 people and get your validation. And so I did that. I tested it out on people who were about to have a hip replacement done, and we've been prepping for that. And this was my first person. And I just said, can you do me a favor? I want to try this out. Can you give me some feedback? And, they were all willing to do that, obviously. And she was at a discomfort level of an 8. I put the gel on and I left her with the tube while I was checking her out and doing other things. And I said, I'll come back. I said, we need to do it 3 times in 5 minutes. I kind of stuck my nose in the door about 2 minutes into this just to check on her. And she was off the table standing up, and she had this funny look on her face. And I said, are you okay? And she said, yes. And she could see she was thinking, and she said, it feels different already. And I kind of looked at my watch, and it's like 2 minutes. That's not what we see, right? 2 minutes. And I said, really? I said, it's only been 2 minutes. I said, well, you were a discomfort level of an 8, where are you now? And so she sort of thought about it, and she said, well, I'm at a level of 2. And I said, what, in 2 minutes? So I said, well, okay, we have to do this thing 3 times in 5 minutes. So I said, just let's finish this and let's see where we go with it. Long and short of it was, this was my first experience. She went from an 8 to a 0 in that 10-minute time. All right, so this was like kind of mind-blowing. I mean, what else do you have that makes that kind of an impact, especially when we're not talking about something as an analgesic, right? We're going to how that dysfunction is being supported to get back and work again. And so then I just went through, well, I had somebody who had a sinus problem, someone who had, severe headaches where they're normally nauseated and in the dark. And the next person I had a broken toe, which was really, really bruised. And I applied it to them, gave them some to take home. And they called me the following day and they said, well, I don't have any discomfort anymore, so I've canceled my appointment with my GP for pain meds, don't need it. And most of the bruising gone. So I was like, okay, this is a no-brainer. This is an obvious product benefit, but I hadn't got any kind of goal for the liquid. I actually really didn't want the liquid. I didn't want to stock it. I had too many other products. And so I gave it to my husband to drink. I was like, you finish what I have. I'm not ordering any more of that. I love this stuff. That's good. And I guess, again, I was really fortunate. He's had a long-term issue, many, many years, couple of decades of not being able to exercise and breathe sufficiently. And so he's been on assistive technologies. We've had oxygen tanks at a certain point, nebulizers. And if he couldn't hold things under control, he'd try off to the ER, which fortunately we live 2 minutes away from one. So we can, I've been known to drive him there. We don't wait for the ambulance to arrive. It's quicker. But he took this stuff, and I didn't have any expectation because I wasn't using it with anybody at that point. But it was really fascinating. He started moving differently in that first week. And then I said, well, I keep hearing all these stories about the magic 8, right? We all know that the clinical studies are all done on 8 ounces. And we know that everybody talks about this shift that they get when they move to the 8-ounce level. And I was kind of skeptical, as I thought, well, it's neat marketing. You can kind of say, well, but, double it up. Well, you're going to sell more product, right? I said, but I keep hearing everybody gets these amazing benefits. I said, why don't you just double up and see if it makes any difference? That was the big shift. In 1 week, he was suddenly out there exercising, climbing trees, cutting down trees, working with all sorts of things and not touching his inhaler. And so I said to him when he came home at the end of that day, I said, how are you feeling? And he kind of looked at me and I'm fine. Isn't that always the way when we don't think about what goes away, right? I'm fine. And I said, okay, but how many times have you used your inhaler? And I kind of knew, but I wanted him to register it for himself. And he looked at me and he went, oh, I haven't touched it. And I said, yeah. I said, you haven't touched it. I said, and there's nothing else we've ever done in 20 years that has had this kind of an impact in such a short time. I said, what the heck have we got here? And so that was really what made me dive into looking at it. And so I started to embrace it in my practice, but it was kind of interesting. I went from him to reading the books and then wondering, what if this is the missing link? The thing that's going to pull everything together, because I'm sure as practitioners out there, we know that, we use lots of different things. If we're not in your field of allopathic medicine, we're looking at nutrition, we're looking at homeopathy, we're looking at detoxification, all the different tools to find the root of the problem. Because I don't think our goal is to want to put a Band-Aid over something. Our goal is to want to get to the root of the issue and help somebody get better and get real health. But we don't always get there. And I know that, I used to have clients who would get inundated with taking too many supplements. They, with 10 and 12. I mean, sometimes people come in to me with bags full of supplements. I mean, 30, 40, and 50. And we kind of go through and trying to work out. But so it's an overwhelming burden for the body, especially because that creates more toxicity if you're not metabolizing this.
They do that,
Sorry?
There are people who come in with bags of meds too,
Right. And so I started thinking, well, I wonder if this is the missing link, because this is about the way cells talk. And I wondered if this would just be the piece of the puzzle that would kind of connect everything together and maybe use other things better. And I had a patient referral. This woman had been bitten by a tick 3 times over a 30-year period. She'd been to some amazing physicians. She'd done allopathic, she'd done non-allopathic, 30-year journey, never really got where she wanted to, couldn't sleep, had no cognitive function, joint issues, total fatigue, could no longer work. And she used to be a radio presenter in New York and had lost that job. And instead of taking her as a referral, when I started to read, the Narain Naidu heavy duty book that we've got in the back there, and I'm going through this and thinking, what if this is the missing link piece? And I just called her up on a whim and I said, I don't know. I said, I'm reading this stuff about redox biochemistry. I said, it's all about how the cells communicate inside, between, and all the rest of it. I said, don't actually ask me to explain it yet. I still haven't got my brain around really what it is. I said, but I'm wondering if it's the missing link that just might make a difference for everything else that you're doing, that might pull it together and just propel you where you need to go. And I said, you can do what you want. You can come and see me when you've finished everything else you're doing. I said, or I'm going to suggest you take the money from that appointment, put it into 90 days and just see if I'm right. That's what she did. 30 days later, that woman had had a 90% shift in her health.
How much was she taking?
Well, we at that point only did the 4 ounces a day, because this was the first person I was using it with. I mean, and I hadn't got experience, and it was just this hunch of reading the book and just wondering. And I said, the only thing I know is that you've not done this before. It's nothing that you've done before, so it's very different, and maybe this is a thing that'll just help you get where you need to get to. And she slept for the first time in 30 years, her joints stopped aching, the veil of fogginess lifted, her memory started to get better, energy levels went up. And the coolest piece, 18 months later, she was able to move back up into New York and become a radio presenter at her old station again. She got her life back. You know, if that had been the end of my Asea story, it would have been worth everything, right? But it was the beginning of what made me realize what I had here was something that did something that nothing else had ever done or could do, a very different approach. So I then embraced sharing it with certain patients that I thought would be beneficial. But here was an interesting thing that started to come back to me from the patients. A group of them that were using this were also coming to me for detoxification. And so we were doing regular foot bath treatment, detoxification foot bath treatment to live down and pull down heavy metal challenges. And they started to say to me when they were, because everybody likes to look at what comes out of that stuff at the end of it, you know, we all sit and analyze and we compare, and I chart things for people and I kind of tell them, you know, what's happening with their health. But I had them suddenly saying, what's that? I haven't seen that before. And then the next one came in and they would say the same thing. What's that? I haven't seen that before. And it was really interesting to watch this uniform difference starting to take place in something. I still don't know what it was because I didn't have it, you know, analyzed chemically, but it was an identical excretion pattern that was there only for the people that were doing the redox, not for the rest of my clients. Nothing shifted for them. And so it was, I knew that this was doing stuff that other stuff wasn't doing. And so it's been really kind of an interesting. Sorry?
Was it like solid? You know, because usually those baths, they turn color, the water gets darker. So what was coming out for the people?
The pattern was very oily, actually. It was kind of, it would aggregate in a certain shape and formation that was absolutely identical with each person. And it was really interesting that, you know, I had the first client who kind of was looking at it and sort of said, well, what's that? You know, that hasn't been there before. This is a new one. So, I mean, the first time I was like, oh, yeah, that's interesting. You've got something else coming out. But then I started to watch this going from one person to another and compare it to the fact that it wasn't there with the people who weren't doing redox. So it's, you know, well, and here's what we do know is that I have another person who's started using the redox, and she's in a chiropractic clinic. Her husband's a chiropractor. She bit on a mercury thermometer many years ago, and so she's mercury toxic. And I did not know when she started using Asea that she's been doing detoxification programs for many years, and she does a lot of blood work testing. She does a lot of analysis to see where her levels are. Because she does analysis and she's been able to compare differences since she's been on the Asea, she said that she's had a 12-fold increase in mercury detoxification. So that's kind of an interesting, you know, we know that what's happening here is it's really helping. And I guess that's probably because we have the glutathione piece, you know, this regulation of glutathione that goes up, and that's that master detoxifier, and it works really to support the liver. So I believe very much that we are so overloaded with, you know, environmental toxins now and pesticides in our foods and our waters and things like that, that 20 years ago when I started in this field, that was kind of like the a la carte extra thing, you know, that people would do. If the extra special people would think about doing detoxification, it wouldn't be run of the mill so much for everybody. But I really think that we're at the point now that this is something that we have to be doing. Some kind of regular detoxification is absolutely essential for every single one of us, because we have such a burden nowadays in terms of what's happening.
Carolyn, could you drill into that just a little bit more? We have a lot of people, I'm sure, who are listening maybe for the first time and may not, and we don't need to go into the intense biochemistry that you were talking about, but what is it about redox signaling that activates that detoxification phenomena in the body?
Well, that's an interesting piece. I mean, we know from the studies done specifically on Asea that what they saw is this NRF2 pathway, which upregulates what we term our internal antioxidant production, how every single cell manufactures something called glutathione and superoxide dismutase, fancy words for antioxidants, right? That powerhouse. And we know that glutathione specifically is something that really supports detoxification in the system. So we're really mobilizing the liver as our filter, and we're really empowering the glutathione to turn on and become much more powerful. It's a much more powerful support system for the body than simply taking antioxidant supplements. And those of us who know about it know that although you'll want the antioxidant supplements as the materials, so if we think about building our house, those are the materials that form the structure for the cell and create that house that we live in. But redox is the labor to deliver those materials. That's why it was the missing link for me in looking at everything that people are doing with nutrition. And then you pull these redox in there, and it's this synergy and partnership. We can now carry those materials and we can build the house. I just love the way that we're able to really support getting this out of the system. And I think we see this. It's really interesting that recent studies have just published that pesticides reduce redox. That's a kind of interesting connection. Another real reason why we want to be replenishing our redox quantity, because we're all being challenged with those pesticides. And if they've proven it clinically that this is impacting us, this is just one wonderful reason why we would want to supplement every single day to counteract that one thing alone.
Real quick, explain how the pesticides, to a lot of people that don't understand that. How are we eating, drinking? How are we getting that every day?
Yeah, that's an interesting comment, because when we talk about this in the clinic, and people would say to me, well, why have I got heavy metals coming? Why am I excreting heavy metals or whatever? And I'd look at them and they'd say, well, I eat organically, I'm really clean, I don't buy things that have pesticides or chemicals in, I'm super, super careful about my lifestyle. And I kind of look at them and say, but you live on planet Earth. Right. And this is, we don't live in a bubble. There's no way that we protect ourselves in a bubble, and we only live in this environment where there are no pesticides and chemicals. We've got petrochemicals, right? Think about the number of cars, think about, the amount of pollution from any of the shipping industries and things like that into the sea and the water. It's in the air all the time. We look at the challenge that people have and saying, we need to reduce carbon footprints over here, and yet we know other countries are heavily polluted. Well, that doesn't stay over that country. The air circulates, so these pollutants and these environmental toxins are just flying around the world. If you are growing organically and somebody is spraying next door to you, it doesn't just stay over that field. So it's in the air, and no matter how cautious we are, there is just no way that we can eliminate everything that is impacting us. How many of you use shampoos, which have got chemicals in? How many, right? Hairsprays, makeup, perfume, body lotions, everything has chemicals in there. Then we think about the chemicals that are in the foods and the stuff that gets sprayed on the foods or sprayed after they're about to be harvested to help them harvest quicker and to dry out. I mean, there's just such an enormous load that never used to be there before. And we know if we do studies, I think studies show, that newborn babies have as many as 90 pesticides in those umbilical cords. That's enormous.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So it's a great way to be able to support us staying healthy, cleaning out from the inside.
How does this help with healing, like with wounds and injuries, and how does it support the body in that way?
Are you there, Carolyn?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you were breaking up a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that was my first experience of using this. I gave it to a friend who had a severe injury and watched things change in a way that made no sense to me right at the beginning. So if we think about, particularly this is a great wound support for us because of the studies that will show that we're changing those cells, or in other words, renewing cells at 16% faster turnover in 28 days. That impacts the way that our skin responds. So it's a great way to put that on the body. This is the signaling mechanism. So redox signals detect damaged cells. And in doing so, when they detect it, they also protect the natural lifespan of a healthy cell. But when they detect a damaged cell, they have two questions. And it is like, I love the way Alan always talks about, this is like the fire alarm goes off, and it signals and pulls fire station to send the truck. And these redox does that signal, we have damage, and we say, well, does this need to be repaired or does it need to be replaced? And so if we signal and we call in the repair mechanism, which is rather like the fire truck, we see that. Let's think about if anyone's cut themselves, they've actually watched redox taking place, right? You see it go red around the outside, that's the fire alarm. Right? It signals the repair mechanism, and then we watch it over time healing, don't we? Because what it is doing is repairing that tissue. But if a cell is very damaged, maybe it's beyond repair, or maybe it's too old and it's time for it to, move on and be replaced by a healthy cell, then that signaling mechanism makes that decision. Can I repair, or do I need to signal the cell death and I need to replace it with a healthy cell, which is also how we heal, if we think about that. I mean, that's just the process of what goes all the time for us. So wound healing, if we're drawing from the inside, we're really amplifying that signal so the body can recognize when there's a damaged cell and come find it and make sure that it's either going to be repaired or replaced. Or we can support it by using this technology right over the area. And, we see so many examples. Got great examples of people that have been able to avoid things like cosmetic surgery, for example, because we've been able to support that ongoing healing where, doctors are saying you're going to have cosmetic surgery, and a year later their scars have miraculously, resolved themselves thanks to using the redox on a long-term basis. But as you say, these things themselves, we can't say are going to diagnose, treat, and cure, but they're the signaling mechanism that the body uses. Our body's making these molecules inside every single cell, and if we didn't have them, not only would we not repair and heal, but we wouldn't be alive either, because there would be no communication.
Exactly. Okay, real quick. I'm not medical. You guys all are. We talked to a lot of people, and where they have an issue, Carolyn, is that it says it's a dietary supplement made from salt water. Please help. A lot of medical people understand that as well, but then also people like me. How can you address that? How do you explain that?
Yeah, that's always a good one, isn't it? Well, it's salt water. So let me ask you the question, Jim. Have you ever cried and tasted your tears?
Yeah.
I've never cried my entire life.
Have you made your wife cry?
A lot.
That one you don't have to answer, right? Have you ever sweated and tasted the sweat? What does it taste of?
Yeah, it's salty.
Salty, right? Because that's what our cells are made of.
Yeah.
If anyone's ever been to an ER, and you know this, Maureen, right? What do they hook people up to if they're staying in? A saline drip. Yeah. Right? Because that is what is inside us. It is that saline that's inside our cell, which is sodium chloride and water, right? That's what it's made of. Now, we're familiar with tears and with sweat, and that's kind of logical. But it also is logical that what we're making this from has to be identical with the way that our cells make it. And so that saline inside the cell is what our cells use to break those things apart and reorganize them in these signaling messengers. And so the company has done exactly the same thing. They have taken saline, and what takes the body a nanosecond to do takes the company 3.5 days to replicate, right? To put this through this complex and patented process of breaking those sodium chloride, hydrogen, and oxygen bonds and restructuring them in these stabilized redox molecules. So it is, we call it nutritional supplementation, right? Because this is not a drug. To be a drug, you have to have something called an LD50, which means that in testing to be able to go to those fancy drug trials, We have to be able to show how much of something is toxic enough to create the death of 50% of those poor mice or rats or whatever they're using, right? And we know that this doesn't have that. It's non-toxic. From studies we've shown it's totally non-toxic. You could drink bottles and bottles and bottles of it and it will benefit you, it won't harm you. You can't be allergic to it because all of us here are manufacturing and making these bioidentical molecules. And we know from studies it's also does not interfere with drugs. So that's wonderful, because can it help or can it hurt? It absolutely can't hurt, but it can only help, and that's so cool. But they made a choice, right? This amazing company took this patented technology and millions of dollars of research and managed to do the impossible. And Gary Samuelson, who's this incredible atomic medical physicist who was tasked with that job of taking this original work and saying, well, exactly what is here? Because Verdis Norton, our founder, had been fortunate enough to try some of these little molecules. They had these little machines that would manufacture them, and he got to drink them and feel good, and he knew they had something special. But when they were able to do this impossible thing, and really I love the visual of a firework, right? We know these molecules are really volatile. They don't hang around long. They're like a spark inside our body. So that seems pretty impossible. How can you grasp a spark? But they did it. They stabilized these incredibly volatile molecules. And now we have this phenomenal opportunity to have something that lasts currently, what is it, 15 months now? So we have an opportunity to use this out in our life instead of being in a research facility. But they made a decision not to sell that technology to a pharmaceutical company. And as a result of that decision, it became a more philanthropic and a legacy-driven company, because they actually were beta testing this product. And this product was having amazing results for these people who started to share it also with their friends and family because they realized it was so powerful. And they turned down a sum of money and instead took a decision to go a different direction and keep it in the hands of people. So what have we done? We've come into a market that enables us not to be in a medical arena, but to be in a nutritional arena, which means we can get it out to the general market. But the challenge is with that, right? People don't understand that nutritional is not about drugs. There's different kinds of ways we talk about things. And here we have something that we can just consume every day. The sodium and the chloride, right? And the sodium and the water on thing. What do we all do? Well, we pick up an ingredients list, right? We look what's in this, right? Sometimes we do. People don't look at everything when they buy them on the shelves. But we look at that and we kind of look at the ingredients. And I say, well, if you've ever baked a cake, have you ever baked a cake, Jim? If you bake a cake, no, okay. Well, maybe Glenn. I mean, maybe
I have.
You have, right?
A lot of cakes, though.
Okay, and what do? You take a recipe book, and I'm talking from scratch, right? You bake a cake from scratch. You look at a recipe, and let's say a pound cake. Most people know what a pound cake is. It's made of eggs and flour and sugar and things like that. And you bake this thing, and you sit down and you eat it, and your friend comes and says, oh, what are you eating? You don't say butter and flour and sugar and eggs, do you? You say, I'm eating a pound cake, right? And so those ingredients are not what the end result is. That is the ingredients that, like that pound cake, is transformed and becomes those Asea redox molecules. And if people want to know what they've got, what's on our label also, that third-party validation. In other words, this goes another stage, it's sent off and it's all third-party validated and checked. And they stamp it, a company called BioAgilytix stamps it as being certified redox molecules. So we start with the ingredients, but we end up with something amazing and so very different. And so that might kind of help people to realize that this is not just salt water, is it?
Right.
That's awesome.
Right.
That's awesome. So I know you, use this in your practice. You obviously share it every day. So why don't you share a little bit about the benchmark, the form that I had sent you earlier? You said you changed it and it's something you use with people who come in. Maybe you can enlighten us on a little bit about that.
So the benchmarking, the company does supply a benchmarking form that's in every box. And I think we also get one online that can be sent to people. I like to do my own, and I don't know if you found the same thing. And I've tried this out with myself. that I think very often when we ask people to benchmark about their health, it's keeping in touch with what changes for ourselves. We're not always aware, are we, when things go away. If we've got something that's chronically with us, and suddenly it's not, maybe you're taking the Asea product, eventually that resolves and you don't realize you don't have those bad knees anymore. We just had somebody, Virginia Almond, who was on last night with Alan Noble, who was talking about the fact that she always used to go up the stairs sideways, right? And then suddenly 2 weeks later, she starts walking down the stairs and she suddenly stopped herself and went, oh, my knees don't hurt anymore, right? Because it's gone away. It's not a problem. So I like to benchmark people, but I have one, and I do a couple of different things. I always love to do the benchmarking with people. I don't actually like them to look at what they write down either. And my reasoning for that is that I once had an example way back that taught me that we aren't always clearly dispassionate about our answers when we try to benchmark things. And so I had a client where I had checked where she was at with her health. And then we were doing some things, and a month later, I checked again where she was at. And I asked her a specific question about being achy and stiff when she got up in the morning. And she said, oh, no, I'm not achy and stiff. I'm fine. You know, I get up and I go. And I remember saying to her, I said, well, that's interesting. I said, because when we took the notes a month ago, this was where you were at. And she suddenly said, oh, I forgot all about that. So that taught me 20 years ago that we don't always remember. And I know that when we fill in that form and then we look at what we did last, what we wrote in the first time, I think human nature tends to say, and I tried the form on myself just to see, right? We tend to say, have I changed from what I said I was last time? We don't just have blinkers on and say, how do I rate myself today? And then go back and look at what we put last time without any.
Yeah, we're losing you a little bit, Carolyn.
Kind of froze up on us.
Yeah, a little
Yeah,
bit.
you're freezing up.
She might have to go out.
Sorry.
We, as a pain doctor, you know, we do that. And Carolyn, you probably have this too. We have people rate their pain. And it was always interesting. I was very familiar with that because somebody would come in and they would say out of, 0 to 10, with 0 being no pain and 10 being pain they didn't think they could survive, where would they rate it? And maybe somebody had a pain level of 8 out of 10. So I would start them on a therapy and they would come back a month later and they would say, this isn't working. And I'd be like, okay, well, where is your pain level today? And they'd say, it's a 5 out of 10. I was like, well, it is working. You were at an 8, so you're very right. People forget. The other thing, and I see this all the time with Asea, is that they develop a new normal. So, they're able to do more. They have less discomfort. They have more flexibility, have more stamina. And suddenly they're able to do more. They're functioning at a higher level, but they don't remember where they were. Yeah. And so they're like, I don't feel a difference anymore. This isn't working anymore. And if you haven't done that benchmark like you're talking about, they don't realize how far they came. It's not until they stop the product and they go back to baseline that they're like, oh my God, it was doing a lot.
And
So,
that's why, And that's
am I back now?
Yeah,
you're back.
Go.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I found is that we do forget. We forget and we do adjust to where we're at. And so I like to do the benchmarking completely. And I don't know if you found it. Sometimes people, when you ask them, well, where are you at with your energy level, for example, or whatever, and sometimes, they'll hum and they'll ha, and then they'll say, well, what did I say last time? And I say, it doesn't matter what you said last time. Where are you now today? Because I just want a straightforward answer. And then it allows me to be able to reflect back for them. Oh, well, it's really interesting. Last time you said you were here and now you're here. So we've had a shift. And the other thing I have is a formula that kind of judges and creates a percentage overall increase, because I look at the fact that we all have major things probably that people are looking to change. Maybe they've got really bad knees, but maybe they've had a slight increase in their energy and a slight improvement in their sleep. Maybe something else has changed just a little bit of a tick that doesn't really feel that significant because they're focused on the big thing that's going to take longer. But I'm able to then do markers that will say, well, that's really interesting. Okay, your knees haven't changed yet, but overall we've had a 10% shift in improvement. And so that enables people to feel kind of comfortable that they're beginning to move in a direction, even if they haven't achieved that final goal. Because we know that, you know, health is not an overnight thing. We didn't get where we got to overnight. We're not likely to shift and recover those things, especially if we've got long-term injuries and, you know, we're over 50. I mean, there's all these other factors that go into why we're aging. So we can't always expect to see these miracles that I know everybody loves to look for, that, you know, suddenly 1 month later, something they've had 5 to 10 years has vanished. Right? And so I want people to be realistic that if you're coming, forgetting even Asea, if people are working with me, I love to talk about at least a 6-month approach to health before we're really beginning to see where to steadily settle in. Because it takes time. It takes time to change blood cells out. It takes time for the body to heal and repair. It's a renovation project. And I think we should think of ourselves as a house. You know, if you've got a renovation project and somebody tells you I need 10 people to do this and it's going to take me 4 months to get that job done, and you say, well, I only want to spend and pay for 2 laborers, not 10 laborers, then your job isn't going to be done in 2 or 3 months. You know, it's maybe 2 or 3 years, if at all. And that kind of speaks, I think, sometimes to helping people understand that some people's renovation project might happen on 4 ounces a day, right? Because they have a smaller renovation project, and some people's renovation project might need 8 ounces a day because they need a bigger crew, and they might need that bigger crew for longer. And so, you know, we need to be really realistic that we're not a drug. We're not forcing the body to paste over a symptom. We're trying to come in and support the body, as we all know, to do what it's designed to do. It's designed to heal. We're not designed to promote sickness. You know, that's the cool piece about it, is that our body can change and improve. Between now and the next 7 years, everything's going to be different. So what are we going to do to help it improve even more?
I'm glad you mentioned about the 6 months, because when you look at that tracker, I mean, I tell people you've got to give minimum 90 days, see 75 trillion cells regenerate. You know, the chart shows it up to 90 days, but some people could take 6 months. They need to give the body time to regenerate the cells. So I love that form.
It's important to remember we're layers of healing, right? You might get one thing first. I had things that changed at 3 months, that changed at 5 months, that changed at 9 months, that changed a year. It's an ongoing renovation. And that's the cool piece about this. You might come in with one thing in mind, but if we're replenishing every day, we're supporting every single cell to do a better job than it did the day before. And how many of us that have been on it for some time all say that people say to us, oh, you look younger, right? That isn't natural, right? Doctors don't tell you to expect to look younger as you get older. I mean, that's not the way it goes, right? But it is when we can employ something that is going to help every single cell work at a more optimal level and more like it did when we were younger and we had more of these molecules. So it's exciting because we get to influence everything in the body in a non-toxic way. Isn't that cool?
Yes, very much.
Let me throw a question out. Jim, you can weigh in on this. You've got a good business mind. Carolyn Marie, from a physician point of view, where's this going?
Is it going?
Yeah, where are we going with this?
Well,
you talked earlier about how novel this was. What is this all? How's this going to impact the marketplace?
How's this going to impact what? I'm sorry, because you're breaking up a bit.
How's this going to impact the marketplace of health?
Yes. You know, we're at the cutting edge of something. I mean, we've been at the cutting edge of this in 2009, 10, when it first came to the market. I mean, it's a category creator. This company is the first to market. It's the only one still to this day to have stabilized these molecules in a bioactive form that gives us something that's commercially available to every single person on the planet. And we don't need a doctor to tell us that we need to drink it, or we can drink it, right? We can do it preventatively if we want to just optimize our health, or we can do it because we need to support ourselves in a better way to get back to doing things that we haven't been able to do for a while. But if we have a company, this is interestingly, because this was the reason that I actually did choose to look at the business side of this. You know, I said I came into that event and I didn't really want to talk about the business, not because I didn't want it, but because I know that, you know, anything we do, and if we want to do it well, is investment of time and commitment and energy, right? You're either going to do it properly or you're not going to do it. And in this business, if you want the power of what the business opportunity can provide, you have to be serious about it. And I think a lot of people aren't always serious about this business, probably because it doesn't cost much money to get into it. If you're buying a traditional business, you're going to put in hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of money, and you're going to be dedicated every single day to protecting that, right? But when something only costs you $40 to get in the door, and whatever product you choose to purchase, people don't always value that. But the one key thing that made me empowered about why I thought this was a great product, I mean, I love the product, but why did I want to get out and put my time to sharing it, was because it was patented. It was because there was nobody else doing this. And I love the notion that I didn't have to work in the nutritional arena as much as this product is sold in that environment. I didn't have to work in the traditional feeling of nutrition. And I didn't have to say, well, my product is better than your product because, right? And I love that, because if I'm going to put my time in it, let's have something that is a category creator, first to market, still the only one there, doing something that nothing else can do, because nothing else has what we have. You know, nothing else, there's no other product on the market that has these amazing redox molecules that can impact every single cell of the body. I don't have anything else that can match this. You know, there's no single nutritional supplement that's going to do that. I mean, it just isn't. And it's not the same mechanism either. So we know that Asea is also committed to this amazing amount of research and development. We have the Vertis Orton Center for Life Sciences now, and that we're going to be really raising the bar and raising the awareness of the market to what we have, and that we are at the cutting edge of this field. We're leading it, and what I understand is that our scientists and what they bring to the table is something that nobody else even has in the field of redox as a whole, that we're right out there doing things that nobody else has. And they're going to be developing more products, more redox-based products. So we know that markets all shift. I find, I don't know about you, but if you've seen things that come into the nutritional arena or the alternative health field, it takes about 20 years to catch up and get to mainstream medicine. So at some point, people will start dancing in the field of redox. I don't think they'll dance the way we're dancing, because if we think there are some single redox focused nutritional products out there, but they're not, they can't do what this is doing. So I think we have this really unique opportunity from a business perspective. And we're in, how many countries in the world? Is it 33? I mean, 34, 33. We have an amazing capacity to sit at home, right, and build an international business with no inventory investment. You know, if I had my practice, I had thousands of dollars of nutritional products on the shelf, and I needed to make sure they rotated and they sold. Otherwise, I was throwing them away if they expired. I don't have that. I don't have the investment in the infrastructure. I don't have the investment in the manufacturing. Asea takes care of all of that for me. The only thing I have to do is get out there and educate people that we have something really unique and that nobody else has, that can do things that nothing else can do. and help those people get connected to this product technology, either as a customer and a user, or as hopefully a partner in sharing and building this business and increasing this market around the world. So I think, we're in this very unique spot, very unique.
Maureen, where do you see it going?
Oh my gosh. Well, if you think about this being foundational to the health of every cell in our body, and the fact that it makes everything else we do or anybody else does that's good for their body work better, I mean, it's really a game changer. In the future, we're going to be order takers, right? Because people are going to want to have that foundational cellular health and be able to build on it. People who are investing a lot, and Carolyn, you can speak to this about the nutritional products and all, ours or others. If you're spending a lot of money on that, if you're spending money to go see people like Carolyn and to detoxify, why would you not want to make sure that your foundational health is set? And that's what this is. As a doctor, I've never, and especially as a pain physician, I've never had my hands on something so powerful and so safe that I could recommend to people. It's amazing. So.
Yeah, and it's speaking to that, I came into this thinking, well, it's the missing link. It's going to help everything else that I do work better. But over time, I think of it the other way. This is the first thing. This is the platform, because this enables, as you said, every cell to optimize. And it's like cleaning out a dirty pond and seeing what's below. You clean the environment out of the whole body. And then we can really target, what do we need to do? Do we need to provide additional, because we do need to provide additional nutrition, right? It's not in our diets any longer. And we have these amazingly synergistically designed nutritional products that go with the Redox, with the Asea Via line, that is organic food. Hallelujah, right? And it's not a synthetic that, again, produces toxicity. And the body looks at it like, what is this? I don't know what to do with this, right? It is, it's non-GMO, thank goodness. It's top of the line in manufacturing and cutting edge approaches to nutrient development. And it's comprehensive. It's comprehensive and it's brilliantly made, and it's not massive, thank goodness, but it's incredibly condensed and supportive to what we need with the source for those, those micronutrients and the great oils that we all require in our diet and the minerals that we require, and heavens, thank goodness, the enzymes that are in there as well, and the biome piece that's not gone crazy with putting in these belly bombs of enormous amounts of CFUs, but they've gone and they've looked at the variety of probiotics that provide this amazingly rich and dense, complex support for our immune system. The phenomenal LifeMax. That stuff is so incredibly complex. There's so much in there. All of the ways in which it's supporting cardiovascular health and, brain health and eye and skin. Immune support system. It's phenomenal. And then I love the omegas. That's the multivitamins or our micronutrients are a stable required thing nowadays. You can't get what you have in your diet. It just isn't there. Again, it doesn't matter whether you're doing organic. It's not there. The food is so deficient. We have to fill in everything that we're missing. And we don't eat varieties of diets these days that provide everything anyway. So it's another reason to stock up with that. But I think omegas are also in that place of a required thing that we all need now. This is not optional. These are absolutely foundational. And then if we really want to get that gut and brain talking, right, and our immune system supported, we need those probiotics in there. Because to me, I've been working in that gut brain health for a long time, but really your gut is your first brain. It's not your second. Sorry, that's where it starts. So, we're lucky. We have a really smart company that put a lot of time and research into doing something in the most effective way. And again, is that synergy that comes together with the Redox that we have.
I like that on the business side that these associates, these new people getting on, I know there's several that are brand new, and how to market it. We today had a medical doctor in San Antonio as our speaker in front of 32 people And just think of how those 32 people could be sharing it with one more person and the ripple effect. And somebody can make a very lucrative income. And you've got all the support and training and marketing. All you got to do is share it. Share it with one person, and that led to another. And now this little town is growing just by planting seeds.
It's true.
Amazing.
Yeah. I want to add in real quick as an ex-stockbroker that did a lot of IPOs, that if I would have ever had a corporate executive come to our office where we had 50 plus brokers and someone would have shared what we have to the group of brokers, you wouldn't believe it, honestly. Because if you really think about what we're saying, it frankly sounds impossible. But I would say that if there were a company, a major pharmaceutical company, that could actually announce that they have what we have and state everything that it does, that it works on, if your issue involves a cell, this will work. Plant, animal, human, doesn't matter. And if you would have said that, and that pharmaceutical had that, and they made the announcement when the stock market closed, hypothetically today, I would ask you, what would happen to the price of that stock? And I know what would happen. It would skyrocket. That Maureen, if you own, 10,000 shares of Pfizer, you would never sell it. So, but my question, what would happen to everything else? But here's the main issue. We've got a category creator that no one else in the world has. Usually when you have a category creator, there's a ripple effect. There are other industries that can benefit from what that company came up with, right? But not here. We are the only company that has it. And when you say this, we've been on the market for 10 years and nobody has reverse engineered this. That's unbelievable. And that's unbelievable, right? I mean,
yeah.
Right.
What do you do with it?
It's unique.
So my favorite question, we're almost wrapping this thing up, but I wanted to network marketing. I didn't have any bad experience. There's a lot of people out there that have had negative reactions to that. And it breaks my heart because they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. What would you say to them, Carolyn, to say, this is different? But what would you say besides the compassion? But how would you, 2 minutes, how would you share with someone that's been injured in the past?
One of the things I would say about anything in business, in life as a whole, is a reputation for companies is, it's not always about the company, is it? We know that there are bad network marketing companies, there are bad experiences, but at the end of the day, it's people, right? The people are the ones that drive the bad experiences. Right. And so I would tell people not to think about network marketing in the way that it was years ago, but its bad reputation. All of that side of things doesn't exist anymore. We're not enrolling people just for the sake of enrolling people, and people are making money out of enrolling people. To me, this is no different than if you buy from Amazon, right? And it goes direct to someone's door, right? This is no different. The company manufactures and they ship directly to everybody all over the world. So regardless of whether you're building a business or whether you're just a user, we're all common in that. We're users of a great product, but we have an opportunity to share and develop information. What do we do naturally in life? We recommend and we go to our friends, right? For recommendations. We ask, where do you go for your car to be serviced? Right? What's the favorite dry cleaners, right? We love to go to someone that we trust. Right. And that's part of what we do in this direct marketing or word to word. This particular business is very different because we have something so unique. It couldn't be done any other way than word of mouth. We have a story to tell.
Right.
But this company is also different because most network marketing companies are people who love network marketing and they find a product because they want to do network marketing with it. This company came at things the other way around. Yeah. This was a product that was going to be a pharmaceutical technology. Mm-hmm. And because of an ethical decision, to say, if you take the money, you shut down the company and you take the product off the market. They turned down an enormous sum of money and said, you know what, we have something that needs to be a legacy for the world. And they took a different turn. And when I came to investigate this company and we went to an event, we walked away after a day and I said, this is so different. I said, we've been to a network marketing event in which no one has mentioned the money or the cars or the houses or the boats or the checks. This felt like a personal development event for the whole day. Seriously, because all anyone talked about was how they changed the lives of somebody else by sharing information, right? And how we could be bigger and better people who could influence and help and bring good around the world, right? Our mission statement, right? To better the lives of other people and to be a force for good in the world. And that was such a different element that you're not going to see in another company. You're just not.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Wonderful.
I tell you what, there's another show that's coming on right now on this same Bat channel. Danny Doyle and Stevie will be coming on any second. Listen, if you want to hear some more lives change, listen to Danny Doyle and Stevie. Next week, we have Dr. Ralph Stevens, who he's been on our show a couple of times.
Oh, wow.
He's a cell biologist that was a professor at not my alma mater, I wish it was, but Ohio State University. I am from Ohio. So guys, please plan on joining us next Friday right back here. Carolyn, thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for helping disseminate the good news of what we have in these amazing little redox healing molecules. So thank you guys so much for your time.
You're always so informative. Love it. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you
Bye,
guys.
everybody. See you next week.
See you next
Bye.
Friday.
Sweet.